Hey, good morning, everyone. Hope you all are doing well on this wonderful Friday. Um, we're going to wait and give it a few minutes to see if there are going to be some folks that are going to join us before I get started. If not, and we don't have a lot of questions today, I'm going to take this time and opportunity to talk to you guys a little bit about the county judge appointment process. A lot of the questions that I've been getting from the constituents in our community are based around the appointment process and how we currently got the county judge that we have now, why I am opposing the county judge that's currently sitting now, as well as information about my background and things that I've done in the community. So I'm going to take the opportunity to talk a little bit about that today, should we not have folks that have logged on and have specific questions. If you have the ability to, just leave a comment. I'm going to answer questions as we're going through, and I will do my best to make sure that I address every single person that jumps on this morning. So with that being said, I'm going to get started. Good morning. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Sheena Rickerson. I am your local county judge judicial candidate. I am currently running against your appointed county judge, Judge Jamie Tyndall. Judge Tyndall was actually appointed by the governor through a process in which names are sent to the governor's office when there becomes a judicial vacancy. So in our circumstance, when Judge Scaff retired towards the end of October of last year, that began a process in which our local judicial nomination commission began convening, and then obviously selected names of applicants that they felt were best and sent those names up to the governor for consideration. What I hear daily on my campaign trail is people having questions about why I wasn't appointed. And I think that I'd like to give a little bit more transparency in today's video so that the general public understands, and it's not something that they just assume maybe I wasn't qualified or that there was some kind of issue. Many of you don't recognize or know how that process works, just because it's not something that has happened in our community actually since 2014. So the last time we've actually had a county judge or a judge appointed in our judicial circuit period, being even a circuit judge, was back in 2014. And so the easiest way to explain this is when I was a prosecutor, I was appointed by the governor, Governor Rick Scott at the time, to be on this local judicial nomination commission. This commission is made up of numerous folks in the community who are just everyday people, as well as attorneys. You go through a vetting process with the governor's office. You have an application process, an interview. It's very similar to many other local commissions that involve members of the Florida Bar, but also everyday citizens in the community. And I went through that process and I was approved to be on that commission. I served on that commission from July of 2018 until January of 2022 when I resigned from that commission. During that entire time that I participated on the commission, we never appointed a judge. We have a very rural legal community, or what we call legal bar in our area. And there were not ever any opportunities to have to appoint a judge because no one had a vacancy. Vacancies can be created when someone has a retirement or has to take a leave of absence in the middle of a term, or just decides they no longer want to be a judge. I mean, everyone has that right as well, and that's when the local commission gets involved. People apply, local attorneys, and then they go through a vetting process through the Judicial Nomination Commission. When I resigned from that commission, I did so because I was in private practice and had been at that point for a little over 2 years, and had moved on to many other type of how should I say it, involvement in my community. So different boards and things that I was serving on, and really just was not in a position that I had time for it anymore. At this point, I was already the town attorney for Jennings. I was already your local president of the Women's Lawyer Association, the 3rd Judicial Circuit Fall. I was a 2-term president. I had 3 young children. I was running a private practice that was going extremely well. And so really I was just stretched thin. And because of the inactivity on that commission, I just felt, there was really no longer a need. So I resigned. I resigned in January, put in my letter to the governor. It was accepted. And then it wasn't until October of that same year that we found out that obviously Judge Scaff was leaving. This was something that was unexpected. It was not something that the commission anticipated would be the case or knew was coming or anything like that. And then that's when triggered, that requirement to go ahead and, begin that process. And so what ended up happening with me, and as far as my eligibility was concerned, is there is a statutory requirement. When you serve on that commission, the Judicial Nomination Commission for our local circuit, you have to be off of that commission for 2 years, or you are not eligible to be appointed. It affects, and the goal of that statute is to try to keep as much fairness or perception of, not being treated equally, things of that nature, I believe is the intent. The problem is, and essentially what I argued in my application, because I still absolutely applied, and I still had numerous people in our local community go to bat for me and write letters to the governor, because I, had been living and working here for over a decade. And I was board certified as a criminal trial attorney, and we actually only had one other applicant that lived here, truly had a residence in Hamilton, and that was Angela Miller, and she had just retired from regional conflict in Lake City, where she served as a defense attorney for lots of years. And so my opinion was, I did not feel that my service on that commission in any way would have presented any, inequity or any bias or any, favor to me over the other candidates, because our legal bar is very small here. And not to mention that at the point that they actually appointed someone and conducted the interviews in December of last year, I would have been off for almost a year. The same people that were on the commission are the same people that I practiced across from and with and have over the last 10 years, whether in private practice or as a prosecutor. And I never had the opportunity to participate in the appointment process. We never appointed a judge during my time on that commission. And also during that time, COVID came. So we had a circumstance where we barely even met for any type of training or ongoing duties or anything like that. It was basically an inactive board, which is what contributed a lot of, my thoughts in resigning from that board. I didn't have a clue in the world that there would ever be a vacancy here. Candidly, I had just went into private practice. It was my second year. I'd never anticipated this county judge opportunity was going to arise. But, you can't control other people's choices of their lives or their, circumstances. And I'm actually, very happy that Judge Scaff made that decision, and so that he can actually enjoy his retirement years. A lot of us as attorneys are workaholics and, try to work till the very end. Judges, with the recent change in the law, can now serve until age 75. It used to be age 71. And so this was a very early retirement for Judge Scaff, and I think nothing that, even the JNC or even the local attorneys anticipated was coming. And so it put me in a position that I didn't have eligibility. I did interview. I was interviewed by the local JNC, and I asked for an exception, was not given one. And then remaining names were also sent up to the governor. One of the names that was sent was Jamie Tyndall, our current appointed judge, who I worked with previously at the state attorney's office for many years. She was my supervisor when I was a prosecutor in the Live Oak State Attorney's Office. I served as felony and misdemeanor prosecutor here in Hamilton County for 4 out of 6 years of my state service. And that's actually where I met my husband. A lot of you may or may not know that about me, but we met in depositions and we began dating, and then we got engaged and began having children. Jamie was, at the time of being appointed, working in private practice. She had also already left the state attorney's office, just like I had, and had a law practice in Lake City. The reason why I am so adamant about the fact that, and have really pushed my campaign to say that I'm your only true local candidate is because I've been living here for a decade. My husband, before he passed, had been working at the Jasper Police Department and living in Hamilton County for 13 years. He had lived in Hamilton County many more years than that, but that's just when he had began with the Jasper Police Department. Prior to that, he worked in White Springs as a police officer, and then he was at the Department of Corrections as a correctional officer before he did the crossover program. So we've essentially invested our life here in public service for the last 10 years. Mine being a prosecutor, and then obviously going into private practice and serving as the town attorney for Jennings. Judge Tyndall actually was required to purchase a home here and move here so that she was eligible for the appointment. One of the requirements to be appointed is that you have to be local. You have to have an address here in Hamilton County. So she had to move from her home where she resided with her husband in Alachua County and purchase a property here in Jasper, which I believe was probably, I think, around March of the last year, which is when, the appointment eventually came. And so I say that to say, there's a lot of talk among the constituents about, whether or not this is someone who has been from this community or who has not, or who has invested in this community. And what I will say to you is Judge Tyndall was a supervisor here in special prosecution for, I would estimate, I don't know exact time frames, but maybe a year or two out of the time that she served, in our actual county. She's not from here. She doesn't have ties here. And I think that's important because I think that the people should have transparency in knowing who has been living and working and serving along next to you for the last decade, and that's been me. I opened my law practice here. I've invested in the local folks here. I've invested in local children here. And a county judge is a people's judge, and that's very important when you're looking at making a decision about what's right for Hamilton County. This election is not personal to Judge Tyndall. It has nothing to do with me, disbelieving anything about qualifications or anything of that nature. I was actually on the ballot to run in October before I even knew who the applicants were to be appointed, which was done in November. The deadline to have applicants was, if I remember back correctly, it was like November 9th or 12th. I'd have to go back and look. And candidly, that was done for a reason, because this would not have been personal to any candidate. This was something that I wanted to achieve and that I, believed I was the best fit for. And I put myself out there as a candidate on the ballot in October, not knowing what would happen, with the appointment. But one way or another, I knew even if I didn't get appointed, I was going to run, and it didn't matter to me against who. There were numerous other candidates, such as David Vallon, a prior public defender that was from here. TJ Brenson, who was an attorney over in Live Oak. There was a Taylor McQuaid, who was an attorney out of Baker County and Lake City. I'm sorry, not Lake City, but Jacksonville, I believe. There was a gentleman from Live Oak who worked for Florida Department of Law Enforcement that applied. There were many other candidates that their names were also sent up to the governor before Judge Tyndall was selected. And candidly, it did not matter to me. And so that's how confident that I feel that I am the best fit for this position. And a lot of things that I think I'm finding that people don't know or recognize about me is, even when I was a prosecutor, I was invested in this community. I was doing things and giving back, and, living here, working next to all of you and caring about, our local folks, even when I wasn't yet in private practice. Private practice just allowed me the opportunity to do a lot more of that. Once I left the state attorney's office, I was able to have the time to be a lot more involved in my community, and candidly, the financial ability to. And so it put me in a position that, I began being able to invest in all the things that matter to me around here. You look at my track record. I have been supporting local youth. I have been doing community events such as trunk or treat or Easter egg hunts or toy drive giveaways. And it wasn't just me. Before my husband passed, it was both of us. Both of us have been what we call public servants at heart, for many years before this opportunity for the vacancy of Judge Scaff even came about. So, I've done trunk or treat now. I think it's going on the 4th year. I've done the Easter egg hunt now. I think it's going on either 2nd or 3rd year. I'd have to look back to be sure. I've done the toy drive now, I know, for at least 4 years. I've sponsored sports across the board. I've sponsored local students. I have, sponsored the schools. I've sponsored our teachers. I mean, if I could go on for days talking about how I've invested my time and my heart and my money into this community, and I didn't just start doing that simply because Judge Scaff retired. And I think that's important to have transparency, because you need to know who you're voting for. So with that being said, let me take a peek here and see if we have any additional questions or comments this morning, because I did promise you that when I do these videos, I'm not going to make them very long. I want to stick to, a small amount of time so I don't put you guys all to sleep early on a Friday morning. But that's essentially, in a wrap, how I got into the position that I didn't receive the appointment. I sometimes feel like that there's some type of inference that maybe somehow the governor may not have wanted to consider me, or was there something wrong with me as a candidate, or something of that nature. And that's why I really felt like getting out here and talking with you guys about this appointment process would better help you to understand how the process works and how we got here. Let's see, we have a question. All right. One of the things that I'm asked the most about too is if I'm ready for a change in Hamilton County, and if we believe that it's time to make progress. And I think those of you that know my service and my track record for me being the town attorney in Jennings know that I am, and know that I'm ready for that to happen here. And I go back to something that absolutely matters to me as well. I raise my children here. I have a home here. I built a home here. Even before me and my husband built a home here back in 2020, we owned property here. My husband did. We sold that property. We bought a foreclosure out off of 143 South, and we gutted it, completely remodeled it, and then bought 20 acres behind us. When we bought the 20 acres behind us, my mother moved into our old home, and then we built the home behind us. And now my mother resides in the front of our property in the first residence we purchased, and then we reside in the back. We also made the choice to replant the property that we had purchased, because it had been pines before, and I think farmed, but it was stumped. It was just not ever replanted. And we definitely knew that we wanted to replant because we wanted to keep the area that we live in, which is very rural. Nothing but pines and hardwoods around everywhere that we live off of 143 South. But we knew we wanted it for privacy, but also so that, us and our children also could hunt. My husband and myself spend a lot of time outdoors with our children. We hunt, we fish, we camp, we do a lot of things that involve the outdoors, and especially here in Hamilton County. Majority of the time during the summer is spent, on the weekends going to, our local rivers and riding our local roads. We ride side by sides a lot. We also intentionally purchased the property that we did because it was very close to a boat ramp. And so, our goals were to raise our children in that type of environment, and also have a circumstance to where we could preserve the Hamilton County that we love, God's country. There's nothing better than being able to raise my kids on our 30 acres and then go outside and, not have a worry in the world. And so I say that to say my heart's here. I care about progress here. I care about the people here, and I care about what the tomorrow looks like here in this county for my children. And so I'm going to leave you with that this morning. And if there are additional questions or concerns that you guys have about what I've presented here today about the appointment, feel free to reach out to me. One of probably the next upcoming videos, just so that you kind of all know what to expect, that I'm going to be handling and doing, will be focusing a little bit more on the actual participation that I've done in the community and the things that I have done with my legal career outside of the fact of just being a lawyer. But frankly, it's a lot. And so we'd be here a lot longer this morning. And so I would leave you all with that. Oh, actually, we had somebody pop on. So we have a question also from the audience. The question that we received is, what can we expect of you as a judge? Well, let me start by saying this. Transparency. I don't have things that I feel that need to be hidden, and I think that's very important for voters, but also fairness. One of the things that I take the most pride in is when I was a prosecutor, I was fair to whoever came in front of me to address a case, regardless of who they were. I think that it doesn't matter your background or where you come from or how much money you have, or any of those things should not factor into your county judge making a good decision. You should judge the case on the facts. You should be, mindful and empathetic of, the mitigation in the background. And you should also do a good job of listening and taking into consideration what the prosecution and the defense presents to you. And that doesn't just go for criminal cases. That also goes for civil matters, because judges also handle civil matters. So plaintiff and defendant. I think it's important to treat people with respect, fairness, give them their day in court and listen to their concerns and be patient. I don't think that it is professional or ethical to treat the people that come before you like they are any different, or that, somehow that, I'm above them or don't relate to them. If anything that anyone should see about me in this campaign is I am approachable, I am down to earth, and I'm very reasonable. One of the things I prided myself on as a prosecutor is making sure that I made a good decision. People really think sometimes that a judge can be the most powerful person in a courtroom, but it actually can be the prosecutor. The prosecutor confers on the court the power that they have. And so prosecutors are your gatekeepers of justice. And in my mind, I've already had experience and opportunity to make sure that I listened to both sides, that I heard both sides, that I heard the mitigation, and that I wasn't closed-minded, or that I had not reached a point to where I was just, how do I say it, just burnt out or, tired, or, let that empathy just, leave. We're all humans. We all have different walks of life, and we all have different things that we bring to the table. And I think it's very important when somebody is in a situation that they've made a bad decision, or they find themselves in some type of civil lawsuit, that we need to be respectful and patient and mindful of those things and actually listen to the circumstances and not rush to judgment. So that was what was important to me as a prosecutor. I always tried to make good decisions that affected, especially when I was prosecuting here in Hamilton County, that affected, the people that lived around me. These decisions I know could carry on with them for a number of years. And I also take pride in the fact that since I've been in private practice, I can't tell you how many people that I actually prosecuted that have come to me and said, Sheena, you treated me so fairly as a prosecutor, and I think you were such a great attorney that I want you to help me in private practice. There is no other better compliment than that to me. And having those people say that to me once I left the state attorney's office and went into private practice. So I'll leave you guys with that. If there's no other questions, I'm not gonna let the video go on much longer if we don't have anybody else that's chimed in and has questions for us this morning. And I thank you all for listening and attending and participating, and I look forward to doing more of these videos in the future so that you guys can learn more about me and make the best decision possible when it comes time to vote. And that, as a reminder for you all, will be August 20th of 2024. And then of course we have early voting usually the week before. A reminder to folks too that if you vote absentee, you need to look at those requirements as well and make sure that you have all that taken care of. But I really appreciate your support, and I look forward to hopefully having your vote come to that time. You guys have a good day. Bye-bye.